Hello everyone, and today we're going to be playing some Adventure Phantom Knights, which is actually a deck I've never uploaded onto the channel for some reason, even though it's one that I have played and have had quite a lot of fun playing, especially since the viability of Rongo in the deck has significantly fallen. It means that now it sort of has to lean into its more and, you know, play the game instead of just summoning Rongo and automatically winning. But now that it's sort of found its own identity, it is a lot of fun. I'm really impressed by playing it. I don't know why I've never uploaded it before. I've had this deck ready to go for quite some time. Now, of course, everyone's going to lock on to right away there the fact that the extra deck has 17 cards in it. Why does it have 17 cards? Well, you have to pick 2 to remove. So basically, I was playing it like this. This is the 15 card extra deck that I use. This is what you're going to see in the video, but I really wanted to play these because being able to summon both Livier as well as Break Sword is super easy. So you can summon the Utopic Draco Future super easily, and this guy is obviously busted. He's so strong. But basically, in order to play that, you would have to cut 2 of your utility cards because you can't get rid of all of these guys. They have to be in there. So you'd have to cut a Dark plus Unicorn and Access Go Talker. So this, of course, would be the first one you would cut, and then you have to decide one of these 2. I really like both these cards as well. You guys play it however you want, but I do like the idea of the Draco Future. I will, of course, be playing it in the future with the Draco Future package instead. But this is how I was playing it in the replay, so this is what I'm going to show you. Now, this deck is a whole ton of fun, to be honest. There's a lot of versatility. It's not impossible to beat. It's not super broken, but usually what you're trying to do is set up the artifact and DPE lock first of all, as well as having a few back row options for additional interruption. That's if you're going first. If you're going second, you're going to summon out, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite cards, the Arc Rebellion Exceed Dragon, which is basically on summon, negate everything else that's face up, and it gains attack equal to the total original attack of all of our monsters on the field. So it gets huge. On the turn it uses that effect, it cannot it's the only monster that can attack though, but to be honest, it gets massive. It can't be destroyed by card effects, and it negates everything else that's currently on the field. So this card is amazing, definitely really good, especially going second. So this is basically your going second card, if you will. You summon this quite easily through Raider's Knight, which you just need any 2 level 4s for, and a lot of these cards can modulate their levels thanks to the Stained Greaves here. So the deck, again, I'm going to be doing a detailed deck profile at the end, so don't worry if you're not keeping up with it. You'll see how it actually works in the gameplay. There's probably some sort of pro Phantom Knights players out there who are going to hate me for how I play this deck, but you know what? It is not something I use very often, but it's a relatively easy deck to pick up. It's not that complicated. You play a couple of games and you sort of spot the patterns a little bit. And there's also some cards in here that I'm playing that maybe not a lot of people do. For example, Raider's Wing. I haven't seen this in virtually any deck lists, but at the same time, I really like this card. It just plays very easily from the graveyard, and you're constantly sending cards from your deck to the grave, so it just sort of made sense. Few options here you don't have to play, but honestly, I really like the deck the way it is. Full deck profile at the end. I'll not take up any more of your time. Let's get into game number 1. Already getting into game 1, we're going second here, which is going to show off what the deck can do sort of going second, and against a pretty powerful turn 1 deck. So Trap Tricks, while not exactly meta relevant due to the fact that they're quite one-dimensional, are definitely a bit of a powerhouse whenever they're going first, thanks to the versatility of their trap cards. So having Sarah then on the field is, of course, their main boss monster. Whenever a normal trap is activated, it will special summon a Trap Tricks monster from the deck, and whenever a Trap Tricks monster is summoned, it will set a whole trap card straight from the deck onto the field, so it adds a ton of card advantage. And of course our opponent has 3 set trap cards, so there are Living Life. We're going to activate our Fateful Adventure here, then summon out our Rite of Aramasir. The Rite of Aramasir will then grab us the Dracoback from the summon. We're going to discard that Dracoback to search our deck for the Wandering Griffin Rider. Now, we're going to activate Dracoback in the graveyard, but our opponent's going to go for the Compulsory Evacuation device. We decide now we're going to use the Griffin Rider to get it just onto the field, but even that's going to get negated by our Gravedigger's Trap Hole. So here's one of the benefits of the Adventure Engine in this deck. Not only does it allow you to put resources in the graveyard, it eats interruptions like it's nobody's business. We don't actually really care that all of that happened, because now that's 2 less trap cards our opponent has to set up on us for the rest of our Phantom Knights plays. Now they summon out Mermillo from the deck, which is going to pop our card. They're going to set an additional card there from the deck. We're going to special summon out So basically, the way a lot of these things work is you'll need one on the field, and then the rest will sort of chain off of it. So we normal summon this guy. Boots can be special summoned whenever you control the Phantom Knights, and the Steen Greaves can be special summoned when you special summon another Phantom Knight. So it's sort of like a chain, and this guy can also boost his level by 1. So we're going to use the 2 level 3s to go into Cherubini, which is going to send from deck to graveyard the Torn Scales. We're going to banish Boots from the graveyard to search our deck for the trap card, sorry, what is this one's name? The Shade Brigande, Brigadine, or whatever its name is. So this card, as long as you don't have any traps in your grave, can special summon itself out to the field and can be used on the turn that you set it. As well, because we banished the Phantom Knight from the graveyard, Torn Scales comes back to us here. This card being back at 3 is amazing. Discard the trap card, send Raider's Wing from deck to graveyard. This acts as a monster reborn while in the grave, so we get back our gloves. Then we're going to link up into Rusty. Rusty then, again, sending another Phantom Knight card from deck to graveyard to set another Phantom Knight spell or trap card to the field. It gets hit with that bottomless trap hole, so we play through all 3 of our opponent's activatable traps. Now that sort of opens the door for us a little bit. We're going to special summon out the trap card, which is a level 4, going into Raider's Knight. This is where I love Raider's Wing, because it coming out to the field here is really cool. You detach an Exceed material from one of your Exceed monsters to summon it out. Then Raider's Knight is going to link itself, Exceed summon itself up into the Arc Rebellion Exceed Dragon. Now before, we're going to activate this card's effect now, so that we negate the whole field and it gains everyone's attack points. Then we're going to link into Predaplant Verte Anaconda. Now remember, we cannot attack anything else with anything else apart from our Exceed Dragon this turn, but we can set up DP for interruption. So there you go, through 3 separate trap cards as well as a pop on our turn, we're still able to set up the Arc Rebellion Dragon as well as a DPE here for follow-up. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects, and it is huge. Getting rid of the back row before it becomes usable on our opponent's turn and passing back to them. So we have a decent little interruption here in the form of DPE, especially after our opponent has expended so much of their resources just to try and deal with us. They're going to link up into Trap Trick Sierra. Now, very quickly before they go to resolve their Parallel Exceed, we're going to take out the Sierra. That's going to stop him from utilizing any of its effects this turn, and it's going to stop the Parallel Exceed from resolving because he no longer controls a Link monster, so he can't be summoned to the zone the Link monster points to. Now, our opponent, admittedly, I believe misplayed here. Unless there's some interaction that I'm missing, they could have won the game. So Triple Tactics Talent, if your opponent uses a monster effect on your turn, you get to use one of these 3 effects. He could have taken control of our dragon and then attacked us directly. I'm not sure if there's some sort of additional thing happening there that's stopping him from doing that. I don't know, but he didn't, so here we are. He gets to draw an additional 2 cards, which is still good. He's able to go into Babushka here, so maybe he already had a plan. He's going to switch us to defense. I mean, we can't activate our effects. And the Raider's Knight normally destroys the card it summons, but again, you can't be destroyed by card effects. Same sort of thing as the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon into Azure Eyes. Now DP comes out. DP is of course useless now that it can't activate its effect, but we are able to summon Malicious here from the graveyard as well as Denier. We are using Malicious and Denier because these are fantastic extenders in this deck for follow-up. So we follow up into basically a, we normal summon our Ash as well, because we're going to use these 3 monsters to go into Unicorn. Unicorn is basically going to bounce the Babushka back to his extra deck, and that's going to free us up to use our DPE to pop itself and the face down card. And now basically we're just open field. Easy lethal. So the deck's not the easiest thing in the world to pilot sometimes. I'm out of breath just trying to narrate over the plays. But what the deck does have is it has almost an endless pool of options. Its originality and the ways in which you can win the game are virtually limitless. As long as you sort of know what you're doing and you're piloting along correctly, you have to have a clear vision of what your win condition is. Once you have a vision of your win condition, you normally have a way to go into it. The biggest way people mess up playing decks like this, Dragon Links is very similar, is that they fail to envision what they want their end board to look like. What they're actually aiming for, they're just pressing yes. They're just pressing yes on effects, they're just activating stuff, and it doesn't always have a structure to it. And if it doesn't have a structure, it's not always going to work out. So very clearly envision, what do you want to do by the end of this turn? What do you want to have in your field? How are you going to win this game? Envision that, then work from there. Your hand and your resources, your deck will do the rest for you, but you have to have the vision to say, these are the cards I need on the field to win this game. That's what I'm going to go for. So, small lesson for deck building, I guess. Let's get into game number 2. Alrighty, getting into game 2 then. So we're going first this time, which is great. This is where the deck ideally wants to be, so it is. We're going to go for our Torn Scales. Basically, Torn Scales is one of the better starters in the deck because it allows you to discard a card to then send one of your Phantom Knights from deck to graveyard. And almost every Phantom Knight that has an effect that allows you to banish it from the graveyard to do one or another things. This one is your primary target, the Ancient Cloak, because you can banish it to search for any Phantom Knight's card, which is a very powerful effect, of course. We're going to link up into the Salamangreat Almirage because then when we banish our Cloak, we search our deck for Boots. Because a card was banished, we summon our Torn Scales. Now we can special summon Boots with a Phantom Knights on the field. We're going to go into Artifact Dag though, so we're going first. This is our primary objective. We're setting up the safe lock. That's the idea. Going to set Brigand onto the field. We're going to activate it, thus triggering the Dagda to then set onto our field the Scythe. Our opponent has the infinite impermanence, but we're going to stop that using the Crossout Designator. So it's a good thing that we had the Crossout in hand, otherwise this would have been... It wouldn't have been super bad, but it wouldn't have been ideal. So we negate the Imperm, Dagda resolves to set Scythe down to the field, and then our trap card will summon itself. Then we're going to link off into Link Spider just to turn it into an effect monster essentially. So now we can summon out Verte Anaconda. Verte Anaconda, of course, paid 2000 light. We're going to activate the Enchantress just so it doesn't get hit with like Call by the Grave or anything or on our opponent's turn. But our main thing is we're going to send our monsters for the Fusion Destiny, summon out DPE, so now we have the full DPE lock as well as 2 additional interruptions. It's good practice during your opponent's draw phase or their standby phase or whenever. This is when you typically want to use the Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer just in case your opponent is running Kaijus or is running Lava Golem, anything like that. The amount of times I've been Lava Golem playing this deck is unreal, especially considering I never run into it otherwise. We make the cocky move of holding back, and it's almost a good thing that we did. Our opponent here goes for the Fallen of Albaz just to try and take out our DPE, discarding the Necro World Banshee, so we know they're playing Zombie World. Which is actually the deck I uploaded last, which is really cool to see. We imperm the Albaz, no more effect. We hold on to the DPE pop for their Zombie World. We pop their Zombie World when it comes up. That's it. Our opponent knows, they knew themselves that nah, that's going nowhere. But I thought it was really cool seeing my own deck being used against me, the branded zombies. That's really cool. But yes, that is, again, really straightforward. I know our opponent wasn't exactly a very interactive duel, and I get that, but I wanted to show going second versus going first and how much they differ and what you would typically do. Whenever you're going first, your objective, Scythe, DPE, any additional interruptions. The Phantom Knight trap cards can interrupt, the Infinite Permanence hand traps, cross out, the Adventure Engine, if your Adventure Engine goes off and actually works for you, which doesn't happen all that often because your opponent usually like negates that stuff right away. But your adventure stuff can give you an additional interruption as well, so you usually have sort of 2, maybe 3 negates if you're lucky, as well as being able to pop an opponent's card and locking them out of their extra deck full stop, which is huge. Locking your opponent out of their extra deck obviously crushes a lot of major strategies, just automatically you are out. And then having 2 or 3 additional interruptions on top of that, pretty big. So that's game number 2, pretty straightforward. Let's get into game number 3. Already getting into game 3 here. Going first yet again, summoning out our Cloak and linking up into Almirage just so we have the Cloak in the graveyard to use. It's going to banish itself to grab from our deck the Brigand. Now we're doing that just so we can basically special summon a Phantom Knights monster out to the field, triggering the Stained Greaves to summon itself out. Now we can link up into Verte Anaconda here. We're not going to use its effect right away because we're going to go for the Stained Greaves in the graveyard to special summon out the Phantom Knights on our hand. Going into Dagda, there you go, there's the versatility. Once you know what you're looking for, the deck will give it to you. Sending Boots from deck to graveyard, Boots is just going to give us an extra interruption here in the form of Fogblade. So right now what we've got is we got DPE, we've got Scythe, and we've got 3 additional interruptions, which is pretty good, and it's not even that difficult really to do in this deck. That's sort of what you're looking at. So yeah, really good. DPE comes out, we're going to set 3, we're going to pass it back to our opponent here, and we're going to see what they can do. Our opponent's going to open up here with Lightning Storm. That's not good. We decide to go for Crossout Designator here. We're going to cross out Imperm just on the off chance that our opponent tries to like Imperm our DPE or something like that. We do get our Scythe activation off of that, which is pretty good. So Scythe comes back out onto the field, no extra deck for our opponent, but it does give them the Lava Golem. Alpha, the Master of Beast, returns the Lava Golem back to their hand. Alpha comes out yet again. Sage the Fleur pops Alpha and Dagda. Dagda, when destroyed, will resummon the Scythe as well, which at least gives us some level of defense, but it's not very much. They're going to swing in and take out our Anaconda, 2400 damage to the face, and we're just going to get it passed back to us. So we were dismantled. We don't have very much to go off of here. We're going to go for Malicious, banishing itself from the graveyard, but this skill drain kills us. Honestly, this is where the deck struggles a lot. Things like this that are just blanket destruction, blanket floodgates, blanket negates, makes it very, very difficult. Yeah, we just scoop it up. There's nothing in our deck that we could summon that is going to get us up and over a skill drain, very short of us being able to go into Access Code Talker and banish itself just to pop the skill drain, but then we have no more resources and then we just lose on the next turn. So not ideal. We decided to just scoop it up onto the next game. But yeah, the deck struggles a lot with huge blanket interruption, like the Lightning Storm, Harpies, Raigeki, things like that, as well as trying to recover from floodgates as well. So we don't care too much about things like Rivalry or Goes and Match. They don't hurt us too much because we're typically playing Dark Warriors, so that's fine. But skill drain makes it very, very difficult because yes, you have a lot of effects that activate in the graveyard and the banish pile, and that's all fine, but all of those effects are simply looking for cards to add to your hand or summon to the field that then you need to use. None of them are actually doing anything impactful on the state of the game from the graveyard. What they're doing is generating more resources so you can use those resources to be impactful. And we didn't have a lot of resources to work with, not given the card that we drew. It's an unfortunate situation. Sometimes you're just gonna lose. You can't win every single game. That's just how it works, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's game number 3. Let's get in and we'll talk about the deck in a wee bit more detail. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile now. We're gonna strip out the fluff here like we normally do by starting off with our hand trap lineup. So we're playing double effect feeler. We got the double Max C, we've got triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, the double Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, we've got where is it? Double Call by the Grave, we got a single Cross-Out Designator, we got the triple Infinite Impermanence. Do you need to play all of those cards? Absolutely not, but I would highly recommend playing a lineup of them or similar to them, maybe even adding in additional ones, perhaps Nibiru, Lightning Storm as a cross-out target, things like that. But yeah, that's the hand traps and things that we're playing. We're going to separate out some of the other core engines as well, just to not clog up the screen so much when we're talking about Phantom Knights. We've got the Fusion Destiny engine to be used off of Pediplant Verte Anaconda. So single Fusion Destiny, double Malicious, and single Denier. The Malicious Denier combo isn't one that I would normally use, but in this deck in particular, it is super, super useful. You can extend so much off of the back of it. And because we are playing a big-ish deck, we're playing more than 40 cards, you break less often on the Destiny heroes because you've more cards to draw from. So more cards equals drawing each individual card less consistently, which is normally a bad thing. But in a deck like this where you're playing quite a number of cards you don't want to see, and you don't have a whole bunch of cards that you specifically do want to see, it does give you that bit of an advantage. So that's fair enough. We've also got the Adventure Engine. Adventure Engine is fantastic in this deck. The single Enchantress, the double Rite of Aramasir, single Dracoback, single Faithful Adventure, and single Griffin Rider. That engine, not only does it give you 2 monsters on your board and in the form of an Omni Negate, a bounce, some decent attacking power, whole bunch of things that the deck always gives you, but it also gives you the option for some free discards. Putting your Phantom Knights into the graveyard, putting your Phantom Knight trap cards into the graveyard while searching off of your Faithful Adventure, and basically eating up a lot of interruptions as well. Your opponent will try their best to interrupt the Adventure Engine, especially if you haven't actually played any Phantom Knights cards yet and your opponent doesn't quite know what you're doing. They'll normally react to the Adventure Engine first. So it's got a couple of purposes. It's ultimately very, very good. I don't play the Adventure Engine very much. I don't think it's as strong as it initially was or that people think it is. But in this deck in particular, it generates advantage in a number of ways, which I'm always a fan of. I'm always a fan of synergy. It works out. Play it. It's good. Last generic card we're playing, apart from these two, is of course the Artifact Scythe. Just for the safe lock, super easy to set it up, very consistent, and the deck takes great advantage of it. Why not? Locking your opponent out of their extra deck is so brutally powerful. In a metagame run by the extra deck. If you look at the tier list, you're seeing branded sword souls, all of that sort of stuff at the top of the list. All stuff that automatically lose to Scythe. So why don't you play it? You know, pretty straightforward to me as far as I can see. It looks pretty straightforward. And this is the Phantom Knight package. Really straightforward. Your main Phantom Knight monster is Thornscales, who was actually limited to 2 until recently. So we're getting this guy back up to 3, which is really nice because he's really strong. You can discard a card to send a Phantom Knight card from deck to the graveyard, and if he's in your graveyard and another Phantom Knight's card is banished, you can special summon him out to the field. So he is a fantastic, he'll basically be your main normal summon whenever you don't have the adventure engine. This is the starter of a lot of your combos. Really strong card. Discarding, of course, is very beneficial. Virtually, well, 4 out of 5 of your trap cards act as Monster Reborn while in the graveyard. Banish it to special summon. This one doesn't, but it's got its own purposes. And then every other card has effects that activate in the graveyard, just either while it's there and another condition is met, or by actively banishing it. So the Cloak will banish itself to search for any Phantom Knight card. Boots will can special summon itself out to the field if you control a Phantom Knight, and can banish itself from the graveyard to search your deck for a Phantom Knight spell or trap card, which is great. The Ragged Gloves is, I'm not the hugest fan of Ragged Gloves. Basically, when you can banish it to send another Phantom Knights card from deck to graveyard, which is, it's a necessary bout of versatility, to be honest. You can probably, some people I would say would even play this maybe at more and cut down the other cards and use it as a way to go into them. I'm not the biggest fan of that strategy, so I like playing one of it because it is a necessary little bit of versatility, but it's not as strong as your other cards, of course. Its goal is just to put your other cards into the graveyard. The Stained Greaves is it's one of the main ways you can go into your level 4 Raider's Knight for when you're going second. I think this card is necessary for the deck at least 1. If a Phantom Knight's monster special summoned to your field, you can special summon it to your field as well, and you can boost its level by 1. Or you can banish it from the graveyard to special summon another Phantom Knight's monster from your hand, and also boost that up by 1. So this, because again, most of your Phantom Knights you'll notice are level 3, all of them in fact. The only difference is Raider's Wing is a level 4, which is part of why we include it. And this card boosting itself or another monster it summons up to level 4, as well as having your trap card, which is a level 4. That's typically how you'll go into your Raider's Knight. So definitely very key card, very strong card. Thornscales we talked about. Raider's Wing. This is a card that not a lot of people are playing in their deck list. I'm a big fan of it, although you can totally cut it. Basically, if you control a Dark Exceed monster, remove one of its materials and special summon this card from your graveyard. Very straightforward. It's a level 4. It's going to help you go into your Raider's Knight more often, or it's going to, as you saw in the gameplay, take advantage of your already existing Raider's Knight, or your Break Sword, or your Levier, or whatever it is, to summon itself onto the field to then extend your combos further into your Dagda, into your DPE, into whatever. It just grants you a free extender, which is really strong. I honestly a big fan of this card. Also, if you summon something using this card as material, an Exceed monster, your opponent can't target it. So if you summon out a Raider's Knight or whatever, your opponent can no longer target it with card effects, which isn't super relevant because you're just going to use it to go into the Exceed Dragon anyway. I don't think that effect is transferable. I could be wrong. You let me know down below. Foolish Burial, for obvious reasons. Pitching any of your monsters to the graveyard is a good thing. Reinforcements of the army, all warriors. Why not? Gives you a lot of versatility. The Phantom Knight's Wing, it can give an attack boost and like a destruction protection for one of your monsters, which is really weak. That effect in particular isn't why it's here. We're playing it at 1 because it can banish itself from the graveyard to basically act as a monster reborn. So it gives you a really solid target off of your Thornscales or your Ragged Gloves or anything like that, just for a little bit of additional extension. This card here, if you can special summon itself out to the monster as a level 4, and if you don't have any traps in your graveyard already, you can activate it on the turn that it was set, which is really good. Honestly, this is again one of the main ways you're summoning out your Raider's Knight for your level 4 Exceed plays. So very strong card, very easily searchable. You don't need to play more than one of it, but you can if you want. Phantom Knight's Fogblade, very good as well. Again, it's like a continuous trap card where you activate it, target an effect monster on the field, negate that card's effects. It cannot attack or be attacked, which basically it's just an extra negate. It's a pretty good negate, easily searchable off of your boots as well as your Rusty, so it's very easily searched, very strong. And again, while in the graveyard, banish it to Monster Reborn out a Phantom Knights. So it's no end to the freaking extension that it grants you. So really solid card, probably one of the best cards in the deck. Getting into the extra deck, of course we got DPE, of course we do. We've got Predaplant Verte Anaconda, of course we do. We've got Dagda, of course we do. That's just, all three of those are just to enable your Scythe and DPE engines, so they're necessary cards. You have, in terms of Exceed plays, Levier will detach a material to special summon a level 4 lower banished monster. Not just yours, it can also summon your opponent's. This doesn't come up very often, but it helps you recycle the banishment effects of your Phantom Knights as well as extend your combos even further. So really like this card. Phantom Knights of Breaksword can pop a card you control and that your opponent controls, and if it's destroyed, you special summon 2 Phantom Knights from your graveyard with their levels boosted by 1 each. That's how you're going to go into your Raider's Knight on most occasions. So really powerful card here, and it also grants the extension into Raider's Knight, which will detach a material to summon out your Arc Rebellion Dragon using itself as material. Arc Rebellion Dragon, detach a material, negate the effect of every other monster on the field and gain attack points equal to their original attack points, so he gets huge, cannot be destroyed by card effects, and essentially, well, the turn he uses his initial effect, you can't declare attacks with anything else but him. So massive card, really strong beat stick, very difficult for your opponent to get over if they don't have non-destruction based removal, and honestly going second, this card wins games. Then we got Zeus for obvious reasons, and we're playing a bunch of Exceed monsters, so why would you not play Zeus? Of course you can cut it if you really wanted to. Like I said, if you want to cut like Dark and Zeus to put in the UDF engine, the Utopic Draco Future, I don't know, might go over well. I've never actually used Zeus. Your Exceed monsters are simply too valuable in other capacities. They're just too important. Link Spider and Almirage are two just engine-based cards. Almirage in order to put one of your Phantom Knights into the graveyard if you just have to normal summon it, and Link Spider to turn your Shade or your Adventure token into an effect monster for Link plays. That's it. Cherubini, 2 level 3 monsters to summon it. It acts as another Foolish Burial, putting another Phantom Knights card in grave. That's part of why the Ragged Gloves are here. So by having Ragged Gloves in, it means that Ragged Gloves can then send one of your spells or traps to the graveyard as well off Cherubini, which it can't normally do. So Dark. Dark is a card that a lot of people have been playing recently. So basically, it can target a Dark monster in your opponent's graveyard, of course, and special summon it to your field. Now that includes a set of really powerful monsters. A lot of branded cards, for example, are Dark Attribute. Your DPE is Dark Attribute. So there's quite a lot of powerful cards that Dark can yoink from your opponent's grave. But also when it's destroyed, you get to add a Dark monster with 1500 defense or less and add it to your hand, which is basically all of your Phantom Knights cards, apart from Torn Skills, unfortunately. So you get to add any of these guys from your deck to your hand when it's destroyed, which is decent. This card isn't necessary to the function of the deck, but it is pretty handy sometimes. So if you are looking to squeeze in that Utopia engine, you can of course cut this card, or maybe even increase your Breaksword to 2. I am a fan of this card. I would probably play a second copy of it, to be honest. But yeah, so definitely not core to the deck. Unicorn, just for the versatility, you know, just bounce a card back to your opponent's hand, pretty straightforward. Rusty is one of the main reasons this deck is good, to be honest. Being able to send a Phantom Knights card from deck to graveyard and then setting a Phantom Knight spell or trap directly from your deck to your field is very powerful. It gives your Fog Blade, it basically puts an additional negate on your board in the form of Fog Blade, as well as putting another Phantom Knight in the graveyard to further utilize their effects. So the Rusty is very strong, and if a Dark Exceed monster is special summoned to the zone of points to, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. So each of them are only once per turn, of course, but it means that if you're going to be going for lethal, it gives a little bit of extra oomph to your Raider Knight play, because not only do you get to summon out something as powerful as the Arc Rebellion Exceed Dragon, you also get to pop an additional card and set an additional negate. Pretty powerful. It's not too often you'll be able to go into all of those plays in the same turn, but it's not exactly impossible either. So, you know, take that as you will. Very powerful card here in general. And then of course our access code talker, which is just a generic filler. You know, it can banish link monsters from your graveyard, pop cards, boost its own attack. I don't need to tell you what access code talker does. You've all seen it a million times over. But yes, that's the full deck, so it is fully broken down. In terms of getting the full list back up in front of you, just so you can actually see the full thing again here, do it the old-fashioned way. Here we have it. This is the full deck: Adventure, DPE, Safe, Phantom Knights with a whole bunch of hand traps in here. Really straightforward. Honestly, the deck is a whole bunch of fun. It's not that difficult to pilot once you sort of get the hang of it and you see where you want specific cards, what cards are your extenders, what cards do you just want in the graveyard. Once you sort of play it a couple of times, you'll get to grip with a lot of the little core mechanics. Once you understand those, from there on out, it's really straightforward. And to be honest, the deck is pretty budget friendly. If you include, of course, the fact that these engines here are going to be used in many decks over and over again. So once you factor in the reusability of some of these engines, the deck suddenly becomes pretty affordable. So it's not that bad for budget players either. The only URs really, what you've got, Rusty, the Exceed Dragon. That's it in terms of URs. Like, that would be specific to this deck. One could argue Cherubini, I guess. It doesn't see a ton of play outside of Phantom Knights. But yeah, those are the only like core to this deck URs that you'll be playing, and then all of the rest of these URs you'll be playing in a whole bunch of decks. Probably most of you probably already have these cards. So yes, that's the deck. There's a breakdown of it, card for card. If you like what you're seeing and you want to see more, subscribe. Again, every subscription counts, every wee bit helps, and we're looking to get to 1,000 here, hopefully by, probably not by the end of this year, we're cutting it a wee bit too close there, but hopefully January, February time, we'll be hitting our target of 1,000. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.